You were never taught how to be a man. You were taught how to perform, how to wear the mask, how to armor up, how to suppress, silence, and sacrifice the parts of you that didn't fit the script. From the moment you could walk, the world handed you a costume stitched together with phrases like, "Man up, don't cry, be strong, don't be weak." You were handed a sword, but never taught how to wield it. You were told to lead, but never shown how to listen. You were told to conquer, but never taught how to connect. You were told to provide, but never taught how to be present. You were told to protect, but never taught how to feel safe within yourself. You were never taught how to be a man, only how to perform like one. And so you became an actor in your own life, playing a role that never felt quite right, smiling when you wanted to scream, fighting when you wanted to flee, numbing when you wanted to feel. You became a master of disguise, a chameleon in a world that demanded conformity. But beneath the mask, the real you was suffocating. The boy who once dreamed of freedom, the man who longs for authenticity, the soul that craves connection. He's still there, waiting, hoping, yearning. It's time to take off the mask. It's time to unlearn the performance. It's time to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. Because being a man isn't about dominance. It's about presence. It's not about stoicism. It's about emotional intelligence. It's not about control. It's about connection. It's not about power over others. It's about power within yourself. Being a man is about integrity, authenticity, vulnerability, courage, compassion. It's about standing tall in your truth, even when the world tries to knock you down. It's about feeling deeply, loving fiercely, and living fully. It's about embracing your humanity, not denying it. So take a deep breath, feel the weight of the mask you've been wearing, and let it go. Let it fall to the ground, shatter into pieces, because you don't need it anymore. You never did. You are enough, just as you are. You are worthy, just as you are. You are a man, not because of how well you perform, but because of how deeply you live. So, live. Live boldly. Live authentically. Live unapologetically. Live as the man you were always meant to be. The man who is free. The man who is whole. The man who is real. Because you were never taught how to be a man. But now, you remember. And that changes everything. Because now you remember not from books, not from movies, not from fathers who only knew how to pass down pain masked as pride, but from your bones. From the soul memory that was buried under decades of performance. From the voice inside that never went silent, only ignored. From the truth that never stopped whispering, even when the noise of the world grew deafening. You were never meant to walk through life armored and numb. You were meant to walk awake, to feel your footsteps, to feel your breath, to feel your rage, not suppress it, to feel your grief, not drown it in distractions, to feel your joy without shame. But they didn't teach you that. They taught you to measure your worth by what you own, not by what you own up to. They taught you that success is external, even if it bankrupts your internal world. They taught you that the measure of a man is how many women he conquers, how many battles he wins, not how many times he chooses peace when war is easier. They taught you to be admired, not known, to be respected, not loved, to be feared, not felt. And you did it. You tried. You wore the mask so well that even you began to forget your own face. You checked every box. You achieved. You succeeded. You provided. And yet, something was missing. Something essential. Something sacred. Yourself. Because what no one tells you is this: There is no glory in being a stranger to your own soul. There is no honor in performing strength while secretly crumbling. There is no peace in being everyone's hero and no one's truth. And there is no freedom in being a man that the world claps for but your heart can't recognize. But this moment is not the end. It is the beginning of a return to something ancient, something primal, something true, a return to the man you were before they told you to bury your tears, before they taught you love was weakness, before they shamed your softness and called it failure. This is the reclamation, not of bravado, not of dominance, but of your own humanity. To stand in front of a mirror, stripped of every performance, and still say, I am a man, I am whole, and I am done pretending. This is your rite of passage, not into manhood by their definition, but into manhood by your own, one forged in fire and softened by truth, one that doesn't flinch at pain because you've faced your own, one that doesn't run from love because you've learned to love yourself, one that doesn't need applause because you finally remembered how to listen to the man beneath the mask, to the man who never needed to perform in the first place. And that man is not broken. He's not too late. He's not lost. He's ready. Ready to burn the script he was handed at birth. Ready to shatter the image of masculinity built on conquest, suppression, and silence. Ready to write a new story, not just for himself, but for every boy who still wonders if his feelings make him less of a man. Ready to become a living permission slip that says, you are allowed to feel, you are allowed to cry, you are allowed to be whole. He no longer needs to armor up just to get through the day. He doesn't have to pretend his soul is bulletproof. He's done acting like he has it all together when inside he's carrying generations of unshed tears and unheard screams. This is the man who isn't afraid of his reflection anymore, because he's no longer seeing someone who performs. He's seeing someone who shows up for himself, for his people, for the truth. He doesn't need to dominate a room to feel seen. His presence is undeniable, not because he demands it, but because he radiates authenticity. Because real power is quiet. Real power listens. Real power doesn't need to conquer, it creates space. And now, when he looks in the mirror, he no longer sees a mask. He sees a man who has battled his shadows and lived to tell the truth. A man who has learned that strength isn't how long you can hold it together, it's how deeply you can let go. Let go of the facade. Let go of the performance. Let go of the shame. Let go of the noise. And return again and again to the self, to the body, to the breath, to the boy he abandoned to become acceptable, to the fire in his chest that still burns not with rage but with remembrance. He remembers now that love is not weakness, that gentleness is not a flaw, that vulnerability is not a risk, it's a revolution. And he will be the man to lead it, not with ego, with empathy, not with masks, with meaning, not with bravado, with balance. He's not here to perform anymore. He's here to be, fully, fiercely, finally, because now he knows what it means to be a man. And it has nothing to do with how well you play the part. It has everything to do with how boldly you live the truth. Truth is, most men are silently drowning in a world that only taught them how to build walls, not how to build homes inside themselves. They know how to defend, but not how to feel. They know how to hustle, but not how to heal. They've mastered endurance, but forgotten how to rest. And rest is not weakness. Rest is resurrection. Rest is where the wounded boy lays down his sword and finally exhales. Where the tired man realizes he doesn't have to be a warrior every day just to be worthy. You see, we were never meant to perform masculinity like a theater act. We were meant to embody it, to live it from the inside out, not as something we chase, but as something we remember. Not as an identity we force, but a truth we uncover. Because a real man isn't built in battle. He's forged in reflection, in the stillness where he faces himself without flinching, in the darkness where he admits, I was taught to be hard, but I was never taught how to hold myself when I broke. But here, now, the illusion dies. The chains loosen, the act ends. This is the great unlearning. Unlearning that your value lies in what you produce. Unlearning that strength means silence. Unlearning that softness disqualifies you from being powerful. Unlearning the myth that the only way to be respected is to be feared. And in that sacred space of unlearning, something more real rises. A man not defined by how much he can carry alone, but by how deeply he can connect, by how fully he can show up with presence, by how honestly he can love, by how gently he can lead without domination, without performance, without apology. This is not the end of manhood. It's the rebirth of a new kind of man, one who doesn't wear his worth like armor, one who doesn't hide behind control, one who has nothing left to prove because he's already enough. And from here, his life changes, not because he becomes someone else, but because he returns to who he was before the world told him he wasn't allowed to exist that way. No more masks, no more performances, no more pretending, just him, breathing, standing, living, free, free from the script, free from the inheritance of emotional exile, free from the weight of generations who were told, don't feel, just function. He is not here to repeat their silence. He is here to redeem their story, because the world doesn't need more men who perform. It needs more men who transform, who dig into the layers they were told to hide, who break the cycle not with violence but with vulnerability, who create safety in their présence et non through fear but through grounded strength, a strength that doesn't flex at anchors, a strength that doesn't dominate it uplifts, a strength that doesn't require applause, it stands in silence and truth. And this man, this new man, rising from the ashes of performance, is dangerous. Not because he is ruthless, because he is whole. And wholeness is threatening to a world that profits off brokenness. Wholeness is ungovernable. It cannot be manipulated, bought, or swayed. He no longer needs to be validated by a system that never knew his name. He no longer waits for the world to approve of his softness. He no longer asks for permission to feel. He feels anyway. And in that choice, he reclaims not only himself, but the entire lineage that came before him. Because when one man stops performing, he gives 1,000 other men permission to stop too. He opens the door to sons who will grow up with fathers who see them, to partners who will no longer be confused by presence laced with detachment, to communities that finally understand a man in his truth doesn't take up space to silence others. He holds space for others to rise. That is what masculinity was always meant to be. Not suppression, not aggression, not performance, presence. It is a fire that warms, not burns. It is a river that flows, not floods. It is a mountain that stands not to tower, but to guide. And now he stands, not as an image, not as a rope, not as an act, but as a man who no longer needs to pretend, as a man who is finally, unapologetically, himself. And when he finally becomes himself, the world around him must recalibrate, because a man who no longer performs cannot be controlled. He does not respond to manipulation, to shame, to guilt, disguised as tradition. He has seen through the veil. He knows now that his masculinity is not fragile, it is sacred. And sacred things are not flaunted, they are protected. He does not raise his voice to prove his dominance. He lowers his walls to show his depth. He does not chase power. He cultivates presence. He does not command respect. He lives in a way that makes it impossible not to give it. This is the quiet revolution, the rewriting of manhood, not with noise, but with knowing, not with conquest, but with consciousness, not with ego, but with essence. And as he walks now, the world begins to recognize something different. He's not seeking anything. He is not missing anything. He is not at war with himself, because he has made peace with the boy within, the one who was once punished for crying, the one who was once told, toughen up, the one who was once laughed at for dreaming. That boy has grown not into a machine, but into a man who remembers. And in remembering, he redefines everything. He becomes the man who listens when it's easier to interrupt, who chooses truth over performance, who knows that being strong doesn't mean being silent, it means being real, especially when it's hardest. The man who no longer performs like one because he finally became one, not for the world, not for the applause, not even for the legacy, but for himself, because for the first time, his soul feels safe in its own skin, because for the first time, his reflection isn't a mask, it's a mirror. And what he sees now is not just a man. It's the truth of masculinity, untamed, unedited, unapologetic. He's not afraid anymore, because he knows he was never weak for feeling. He was never soft for caring. He was never wrong for needing. He just wasn't taught. But now he has remembered. And in that remembrance, he has risen. He has returned. He is free. He is finally a man. He is finally a man, not by the measure of titles or trophies, not by the scars he hides, but by the light he no longer dims. Because now he carries himself with a presence that cannot be faked, the kind of presence that makes silence sacred, that makes others soften, that makes people feel safe without needing to be small. He is no longer chasing admiration from the outside, because he has finally built reverence on the inside. He respects himself too much to perform. He honors himself too deeply to lie. This man, he holds space for his anger, but never lets it speak for him. He holds space for his grief, but never lets it rot him. He holds space for his desire, but never lets it consume him. He holds space for love, and now, finally, he knows how to receive it. He no longer confuses control with stability. He no longer mistakes dominance for leadership. He no longer looks to the world to define who he is, because now he embodies who he is. And when a man lives in alignment with who he truly is, he becomes unbreakable. Not because he's made of stone, but because he's made of truth, a truth forged in fire, a truth born through breakdowns, heartbreak, disillusionment, a truth that was always there, beneath the performances, waiting to be remembered, and now others will call him wise. Others will wonder how he became so grounded, so balanced, so peaceful. But he will smile, because he knows this wasn't luck. It was the price of waking up. It was the cost of letting go of who he was told to be, so he could become who he actually is. In that man, he doesn't just live, he leads by example, by energy, by essence. He's not loud, he's luminous, he's not perfect, he's present. He's not who the world made him. He is who he was always meant to be. And now, nothing can stop him, because he is no longer performing. He is becoming every day, every breath, every moment. He's not acting like a man anymore. He is one. And in that becoming, there is no final destination, only deeper layers of truth to uncover, only new shadows to integrate, new wounds to heal, new wisdom to earn through the fire of living honestly. Because being a man, a real man, isn't about arrival. It's about awakening. It's about holding your past without shame, facing your pain without fear, loving without conditions, and showing up every day, not because you have something to prove, but because you have something to give. He now walks this world not as a performer, not as a pawn in someone else's script, but as a man who rewrote a narrative, line by line, scar by scar, decision by decision. He no longer hides from himself in the crowd. He doesn't lose himself in women who confuse chaos with chemistry. He doesn't betray his values just to belong. He stands alone, if necessary, because now he belongs to himself. And when the storms come, because they will, he does not run. He does not numb. He listens. He feels. He remembers that this is what he was made for. Not to dominate nature, but to live in harmony with his own. Not to conquer love, but to honor it. Not to silence others, but to stand beside them in truth. This is the man who no longer performs. This is the man who walks with fire in his chest and peace in his eyes, who speaks with clarity instead of noise, who touches the world, not with force, but with presence. He's no longer ashamed of his tears. He's proud of them, because they were the first waters to cleanse the mask, to baptize the boy, and to return him home. And now he is home, in his body, in his story, in his manhood. Not the manhood shaped by centuries of silence, but the manhood forged by consciousness, by courage, by compassion. He doesn't need to be feared to feel strong. He doesn't need to be perfect to feel worthy. He doesn't need to perform to feel alive. Because now he is fully, finally, forever. He was never taught how to be a man, but he remembered. And that is what made him unstoppable.